Okay, James Reynolds, for the moment, we'll come back to you when Emmanuel Macron appears. Let me introduce you to Yasser Louati. He's a human rights and civil liberties activist. He's come to join us on our balcony. Marine Le Pen into the second round. There will be many people, particularly in the suburbs of Paris and the cities around the country, who will be very disappointed to see her there in the second round.
I mean, like any real Republican will be disappointed. 11.2 million people have, voted for her, which is quite worrisome. And again, history will remember that all of the candidates did not battle to be first, but to be second behind Marine Le Pen, which is quite worrying when people actually gave in. She did not make this course because she was better, it's because people gave up and did not want to fight. The second idea is that right now the choice is between a fascist party and the CAC 40, which means the big corporations and big money supporting Emmanuel Macron. Of course, his, strength is that Emmanuel Macron did not dive into identity politics. He tried to be appeasing. Nevertheless, there is no point in saying Islamophobia is evil if it is to actually implement a neoliberal agenda that will fuel actually, racism in French society.
Some people warn that it would be very tense in the suburbs in the banlieue this evening if she got through to the second round. We'll have to watch that. But a lot of people in the banlieue, when they were interviewed in the campaign, said we don't have an interest in this election. Might they have a greater interest in it because the far right is in the second round?
I mean, actually, the far-right ideas have been in power for many years. Actually, under François Hollande, many far-right ideas were implemented, during the past 5 years, especially when it comes to security and identity politics. People are now speaking about the Lepenization of the minds, saying that, okay, the far-right might be an extreme party, but the right as well as the left agree on many issues targeting the banlieue and the working-class neighborhoods. So now it's more about what's going to come after. First, the presidential election, and then the parliamentary election. Emmanuel Macron it's not very clear whether he will have a parliamentary majority to actually run the country. The second point is that we have had left-wing populism versus right-wing populism, and this might be actually a good joker for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who might be in a position of strength to actually destroy the Socialist Party and then rebuild a new left-wing party.
Dominique, is that a worry for you, how the banlieue in France, the suburbs, will react to this?
Of course, it is an essential issue. But I would say that Emmanuel Macron, contrary to Prime Minister Rutte in the Netherlands when he defeated Wilders, never went to the right. He was always the candidate of moderation. There was no Le Penization in his mind, and I think he can have some kind of majority. Maybe not the traditional majority. Maybe it will be a kind of coalition in the style more of Germany than on France.
Do you think that was a mistake for François Fillon? I mean, obviously, after the events here on Thursday, he turned a bit towards security and...
The mistake for François Fillon was not to resign after the beginning of the scandal, because it was really the moment for the Republican to win. If Alain Juppé had been the candidate, the result might have been completely different. And so this was the real mistake of Fillon. But he tried desperately to win, and he used some kind of arguments that were not dignified. And he will have to, in a way, bear the responsibility for that in the eyes of history.
In 2012, the migrant population and the inner cities in France, they had a candidate in François Hollande who was promising a lot of things. Le changement, c'est maintenant. It was all about jobs. We'll reduce unemployment below 10%. It never happened. Do they just feel that there is a string, as far back as you can see, of broken promises here in France?
Well, I just came back from a conference last night in a small suburb. The key word is that, or the key idea is that, for once, the Socialist Party had a candidate that stood against any kind of form of racism, for social justice, in a real left-wing program. He got boycotted by the Socialist Party, and they all fled to Emmanuel Macron. And people swore after...
You're talking about Benoît Hamon.
Exactly, yeah, Benoît Hamon. And people of my generation and the one before me, they actually swore to never again vote for the Socialist Party. I think his mistake would have been to be running for the Socialist Party rather than as an independent. Now, François Hollande is the worst candidate of the Fifth Republic. His ratings are, I think, like 4 or 5%, if not less than that. And now again, it might be also an opportunity for people to actually get more involved into politics, not by joining the parties, but by becoming more organized and pushing for change for the benefit of the common citizen.
Just coming back to the divisions, the events of what we saw here on Thursday night, truly dreadful. And I was asking people who came and, we interviewed people who had terrorist experts, whether part of the problem in fighting terrorism is that there is no information coming from the banlieue. The division between urban France and the banlieue is such, and the division with the police as well, is such that they don't get the intelligence they need.
That's, pardon me, sir, that's absolutely false, because all the organizations have been working with the police and actually worked with many activists who work with the police and in return get raided and put under house arrest on mere suspicion. The fact is that there is no sharing of information between different intelligence agencies. Now coming to what we call radicalization, the first problem is that we haven't defined yet what's radicalization. Actually nobody knows. We know it has to do with terrorism, but nothing more than that. The difficulty with this is that even our domestic intelligence has been calling on the French government since 2013 or 2014 to actually change its strategy and to act upstream and to work with the communities instead of singling them out. That was not done. There was also this one-upmanship on security and identity issues, and the fact that we focused on changing the constitution to strip people of their citizenship shows that, well, actually terrorism is not French. Well, I'm sorry, if a person is born and raised in France and commits an act of terror in France, it's a French problem, not a foreign problem.
I'm bound to ask, there will be a very tense couple of weeks ahead of us, because there are some theories that the extremists want to get involved in this election and change the tone of the debate, even maybe change the final result. And so France will be under some quite tight security over the next 2 weeks, Dominique.
Yes, of course. There are outside forces that want chaos in France, or that want extremism to win in France. But I think the French have proven to be more resilient than their adversary thought, more rational, much more moderate. There was a terrible attack on this avenue a few nights ago, and it had little, if no impact on the French elections.
Yeah, and thousands of people on the Champs-Élysées this evening.
Yeah.
We were just talking about the state of emergency. Has that, do you think, created some of the division in French society over the last 2 years?
I don't think so. I think the majority of the French have accepted the rationale for the state of emergency, and they understand that it is for their security. France has not become a police state. There were people applauding the policemen on the Champs-Élysées on Friday, on the day after the event. I don't want to paint too rosy a picture. There are, of course, a much more complex reality on the ground. There are things that are not fine. When you give too much power to some people, it goes wrongly. But on the whole, what you have to realize is that the man who has been playing the card of repentance in Algeria, the man who has been preaching moderation, the man who has been leading optimism, being a beacon of hope in an ocean of despair, is number one tonight and is very likely to be the next president of France.
But for all that hope, it would be a very brave new president that ended the state of emergency here in France, given the state of the threat France faces.
Well, I have to disagree with you, sir. The state of emergency did create division. 4,200 raids have been carried, mostly against Muslim families. You have Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the French Human Rights League, all saying that these measures were targeting indiscriminately against Muslims specifically. When you have, again, people being targeted, as one of the prefect staff members said, we have targeted visibly practicing Muslims. And again, I do agree with you, nevertheless, that extremists do speak the same language. When ISIL, for example, published their paper called The Destruction of the Grey Zone in February 2015, they called for the impossibility of peaceful coexistence between Muslims and non-Muslims. The security measures adopted have failed again and again. We have had the Bastille Day attack. We have had the killing of various police officers. The solution is not actually in more repression, but in more prevention and acting upstream. That's for one.
Fascinating issues.